Hi everyone! Thank you so much for joining me today as we complete another read aloud. And today's read aloud is The Fastest Fox in the Forest by Kenneth Moulton. This story is what we call a fable. Now, a fable is a story that usually features animals as the main characters, and there's always a moral. The moral in the story is the lesson learned by the characters. So, as we read, I want you to think about what's the lesson that our character learns in this story? And then that is the moral. So, we're going to identify the moral of the story in The Fastest Fox in the Forest. So, here we go. The Fastest Fox in the Forest. Once upon a time, there lived a little red fox in the forest. He was no ordinary fox, for he was very fast, so fast that no other animal in the forest could catch him. When the forest animals got together to play tag, the little red fox would always win, for none of the other animals could outrun him when he was it, and he always won easily at all racing games. One day, hunters came into the woods to hunt, and they brought their dogs with them. Hearing of this, the little red fox thought it would be a good time to show those hunters and their dogs just who the fastest fox in the forest was. When Little Red found the hunters, they were riding horses while the hunting dogs led the way into the forest. The dogs were making such a frightful noise with all that barking and howling. Little Red Fox had never seen such a sight before. When the hunting dogs caught sight of Little Red, they barked and howled even louder, and the sound of a horn could also be heard. Ta-da! Ta-da! The little red fox then set out to show them his swiftness. Little Red ran among the tall forest tress, jumping over logs and rocks, scrambling under bushes and darting this way and that. As he made his way through the forest, the sound of the hunter's dogs and horn began fading away. Just as the little red fox was about to put an end to the chase, he tripped on a fallen tree branch and went tumbling into the tall grass. When Little Red got up to run again, he realized that he had twisted his leg. With the hunters and their dogs now coming closer, Little Red tried to run again, but this time he could not run very fast because of his injury. Pretty soon, the sound of the dogs and the hunter's horn became louder and louder. Ta-da! 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 As the little red fox slowly hobbles his way through the forest, the other little forest animals could see that he was in trouble. When Little Red came upon Mr. Turtle, he asked him what he should do to escape the approaching hunters and their dogs. Mr. Turtle told the little red fox that when in danger approaches him, he crawls into his shell for safety. The little red fox did not have a shell to crawl into, so he continued on. Little Red then met Mr. Skunk. He asked Mr. Skunk what he should do to escape the ever so close hunters and their dogs. Mr. Skunk told Little Red Fox that when danger approaches, he lifts his awesome tail and sprays a scent that no one can forget. The little red fox did not have such a fine tail, so he continued on. The little red fox then came to Mr. Snake. He asked Mr. Snake what he should do. Mr. Snake told Little Red that when danger approaches him, he coils up like a garden hose, rears back, and hisses while showing his fangs. Well, the little red fox could not coil like Mr. Snake, so he continued on. Next, the little red fox encountered Mr. Owl, who was the wisest of all the forest animals. The little red fox told Mr. Owl about hurting his leg and what Mr. Turtle, Mr. Skunk, and Mr. Snake suggested that he do. Mr. Owl thought for a moment and then told the little red fox that since he could not run as fast as he normally could, that he had only his red fox fur to protect him now. Mr. Owl told the little red fox to hide in a nearby berry bush, so he did quickly. Several little forest animals, at the direction of Mr. Owl, gathered up the red, purple, orange, and yellow fall leaves and scattered them around the red berry bush, and then they watched and waited nearby. Very soon, the hunter's dogs came racing up. The lead dog tripped over Mr. Turtle and sent himself and others tumbling into a big ball. The remaining dogs ran into Mr. Skunk's tall tail scent, which sent their noses reeling for fresh air. When the hunter's horses came upon Mr. Snake, they came to a sudden stop, sending their riders, along with the horn, falling to the ground. After the hunters got to their feet and brushed themselves off, they looked and looked, but could not see the little red fox, who was still hiding in the red berry bush. They decided to go home and try again another day. Remaining in the red berry bush and being fed by the little forest animals, Little Red stayed until his leg healed. From that time on, when the forest animals gathered to play tag and the little red fox was it, he would let the other forest animals catch him, even Mr. Turtle, for Little Red Fox knew he was still the fastest in the forest. The end. And here's a pretty cool note about the author. I am from Kentucky, and so is the author. So about the author, Kenneth Moulton is a retired Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy who resides in Lexington, Kentucky, near his daughter and son-in-law. Ken enjoys creating bedtime stories for his daughter as she was growing up. As a lover of all animals, many stories were about animals and their adventures. The Fastest Fox in the Forest was one of his daughter's favorite stories and has now come to life in print for other children to enjoy. He continues to enjoy the creative process of storytelling and is looking forward to more adventures with the woodland animals. I think this is pretty interesting. I'm also from Lexington, Kentucky, so I wanted to share a local book. So here we go, The Fastest Fox in the Forest. Thank you all so much for listening. And now I want you all to think, what was the moral or the lesson learned by the fox in the story? So as you think, I want you to write this down or depict the moral in some way. So maybe you write a sentence stating what the moral of the story is. Maybe you draw a diagram. Maybe you draw a picture. Maybe you write a song. I know we have some very musically gifted kids around here. So, whatever you feel like, find a way to express the moral of this story. Thank you again so much for listening to the reading of The Fastest Fox in the Forest. And thank you so much for joining me. You all have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.